The guy tried a fucking coup. He has 91 indictments against him, and he's the only person ever in the Republican primary to sweep the first two contests. Ever. It's never happened before.
He's going to sweep all of them.
I guess maybe on cable news they're not supposed to every hour be like, this is crazy, how is this happening? But I feel like that is probably more called for after what happened last night. They're like, let's look at Hillsborough County and how Donald Trump has some weakness there.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Next Level. I'm JVL here with my best friends, Tim Miller and Sarah Longwell of the Bulwark. Guys, New Hampshire is done and in the books, and maybe a tiny bit surprising. And now, there's a month to go. Anything could happen, and we're not going to declare this thing over because that's what the Democrats want us to do. You know what? Sarah, I want to go to you first. Just initial thoughts. Talk to me.
Ryan Binkley. He still has a shot. Don't say it so. Have you thought about Binkley? Binkley's still in. Yeah.
I have no idea who that is.
I've not thought that much about Binkley.
Can I just tell you, Binkley first came to my attention live on television. Well, actually not live, but I was taping PBS show, and this woman in Iowa kept bringing up Ryan Binkley as someone she really liked. And at some point I had to stop her and say, ma'am, I'm sorry, but I don't know who that is. But he's gotten scant attention, but he is some Texas pastor, and he is still in this race. Anyway, so is Nikki Haley. My first thoughts are straightforward and simple. The race is over. Nikki Haley says she's going on. I'm not sure why. She's going to get killed in her home state. I would like to take bets with all of you on whether or not she actually goes through with South Carolina. I mean, it sounds like she's got the dollars. She thinks that getting in, 11 points is enough to, what do they say, punch the ticket out of New Hampshire.
Ticket to ride.
Yeah, I do have bad news, though, which is if you look at any of the numbers and you separate them out between independents and Republicans, she did terrible with Republicans. Horrible. Her voters are all independents and undeclared voters, many of whom, as we know from the focus groups we've done, are MSNBC watching Democrats who turned out to vote against Trump. These voters do not exist in these other states. There's no path. There's no math. God bless her for fighting. So you're saying that
Republicans are the ones who want to elect Donald Trump?
I am, indeed.
Because that's not what I've been told. I have seen things from Twitter, and in fact, Nikki Haley last night in her Don't Call It a Victory speech specifically said that it's the Democrats who want to anoint Donald Trump and make the... Is that not true?
Here's the thing. It is a little bit true, right? There is an element of hold on a second, Tim. I can see your face, grumpy face.
It's not really true at all, but go ahead. Let's hear it. Forget
Democrats. Does Joe Biden, has his plan all along been, it's going to be me and Trump. It's going to be Trump again. And I think, of course,
that's different than wanting Trump, though. Right? That's just recognizing reality.
I think they think that Trump's the one.
Why spend your time planning for Nikki Haley when you know she's not going to win? They think they can beat Trump,
right? Yeah, but they think they can beat Trump, and I think they like the contrast. That is different, though, from saying all Democrats want Trump. What we know, right, is it's different. There's a political calculation of who do I think I can beat. That is, I think that's in there. That's different, though, from saying Democrats want Trump. It's more that we know this is where the Republican Party is. We know that's who they're going to nominate. And by nominating lunatics, that has set Democrats up to win a lot of races that they might not have had Republicans put up normal people.
Tim?
All right, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that most Democrats want Trump to be in jail. I think that's almost a unanimous view of Democrats, from Joe Biden all the way down to your rank and file person in wherever, Franconia, New Hampshire, that crossed over yesterday to vote for Nikki Haley, who they hate. So I think the Democrats basically want Donald Trump to go away, and I do bristle when assholes that have provided cover for Donald Trump for years on the Republican side are like, the media and the Democrats, the never Trumpers really want Trump. He sustains them. I'm like, we have an entire media outlet dedicated to opposing Donald Trump. We're all of Sarah, at least, and I'm on a board of groups that exist solely to stop Donald Trump. My whole brain has been consumed with for 8 years is getting rid of this piece of shit that is a wart on the ass of our country. And I want him to go away. I want him to, what I want to happen to him? Everybody knows. So please stop accusing me of wanting Donald Trump. I don't want it for the content. I don't want the retweets that bad. It'd be fine. I could write about something else. I promise. So anyway.
Can I throw a little bit of data at you guys?
Please.
Because I've been somewhat obsessed with this question for the last 18 months since it started coming from the Twitter feeds and National Review. And we did a poll of Bulwark subscribers. Not science, but few thousand people responded, and I specifically framed the question as, would you prefer that Donald Trump was the nominee if it meant that Joe Biden had a better chance of winning re-election, or would you prefer it was some other Republican if it meant that Republican then had a better chance to win election? And it was 86-12 or something like that.
Yeah.
That they preferred Trump not be the nominee. They were like, we'll take DeSantis, Haley, Scott, whoever it is, even if it means they beat our guy, Joe Biden. And I think that seems to be the sentiment.
Yeah, and it was 94-6 last night in the exit polls of Democrats who crossed over to vote for Nikki Haley. So anyway, it's very obvious what the truth is in all this. I think that to Sarah's point, I do agree that Joe Biden's been planning on running against Donald Trump, and that's because Donald Trump just won in the largest landslide in the history of the Republican primary. Okay, and this is another thing that I'm mad about this morning when we're looking at analysis. I was on very late last night with MSNBC. It's a lot of happy talk on the left about the weakness of the Donald Trump coalition. We can talk about that. I'm happy that there are some green shoots for sure. And people on Twitter mad at me because I called it a landslide, and leftists being like, Donald Trump was the president, and he only got 54%. He only won by 11. This is a sign of his great weakness. I guess it's a sign of some weakness. It is a sign of some weakness, but the guy tried a fucking coup. He has 91 indictments against him, and he's the only person ever in the Republican primary to sweep the first two contests. Ever. It's never happened before.
He's going to sweep all of them.
He's going to sweep all of them. He's going to be the first one ever to do it. Okay? And we've never had a race like this before. Even George W. Bush in 1999, who is also a quasi-incumbent, running on his father's legacy, had horrible opponents. I mean, Trump's at least running against the governor of Georgia, former governor of South Carolina, former ambassador. George Bush was running against John McCain, who was barely a Republican, let's be honest, and a business guy, and the wife of a candidate. George W. Bush had no type A, Class A challengers. He still gets annihilated in New Hampshire by McCain, and then loses 5 other states. So this is unprecedented. When Donald Trump announced his campaign, 13 months ago, around Thanksgiving of 2022, no one showed up. His family didn't show up. Olivia Nuzzi wrote the great story there from Mar-a-Lago where it's Brick Man was in the VIP section and the strategists were all whispering to her about how sad it is when Brick Man is the only guy that shows up. Matt Gaetz was pretending he had to wash his hair that day. He pretended even Matt Gaetz pretended that there was bad weather in his flight. He was losing to DeSantis. So sure, there were elements of this that were inevitable. JVL saw this coming. Many of us saw this coming pretty quickly. But, there could have been a campaign against him. Nobody decided to run a campaign. He's extremely dangerous. It's unbelievably dangerous. It's the first time we're going to ever have a nominee of a party that is threatening to end the constitutional republic as we know it. And, he's winning pretty handily. So I'm fucking annoyed when people are like, well, just focus on his weakness. Just Donald, this is such terrible news for Donald Trump. It's not great. It's not great. We can analyze it. It's not. There are some things there's some warning signs for Trump, but it's really bad for us that this just malignant, felonious piece of shit is going to win all 50 states and basically every county. I mean, Nikki Haley won 1 county last night, and she won 1 in Iowa. And he's going to win 99.8% of the counties nationwide. So, it's not great, guys. It's not great. We can beat him.
All caps Tim is on fire.
We can beat him, but let's not pretend like it's it was all happy talk. It took at 1:30 in the morning. I was like, guys, aren't we a little bit concerned? I get a little bit I feel like this needs to be said. I guess maybe on cable news they're not supposed to every hour be like, "This is crazy! This is crazy! How is this happening?" But I feel like that is probably more called for after what happened last night. They're like, "Let's look at Hillsborough County and how Donald Trump has some weakness there."
Yeah, no. Instead, the entire media just walks around like, just like any other race, just like 2004. Boy, remember the 2004 race? Not all that different. So I want to ask a question of you two, because I've written about it for the newsletter, which is not out yet, so you have an excuse for not having read it, Sarah.
Okay, great.
I
read yesterday's. Go ahead.
Yeah? On your own, or were you prompted?
You told me I had to read it, so I did.
Okay. I think that Nikki Haley's 43% is actually enough to give her a platform to be Chris Christie for a month. And that if she were to be Chris Christie for a month, it would do enormous damage to Trump for the general election.
Enormous?
And that she could choose to do that. This isn't like saying, like, if only Nikki Haley could turn into an elephant, then it would be fine. Like, no. Like, this is a possible thing. There are plenty of people who've done this. Adam Kinzinger has done this. Liz Cheney has done this. Chris Christie has done this. There are 17 or 16 other Republican officials who worked at high levels for Trump who have done some version of this. Nikki Haley could absolutely choose to do that. She could spend the next 4 weeks doing 3 town halls a day and going on every TV show and just saying Donald Trump is unfit to be president. He can't be president again. This isn't, we cannot do this. And if she did that, I think it would really hurt him for the general election. It created, again, the permission structures for all these normie Republicans to vote for Biden, or at least not vote for Trump, create permission structures for other former Trump officials to speak out against him. It's not crazy.
Question.
And it wouldn't hurt her any more than just being sycophantic would hurt her. Like, her career's over. She will never win another election.
Right? I think that's true. Now, it's funny. Let me ask you a question, though. Does she endorse Trump after that, at the end? She doesn't, right? In your scenario.
In my scenario, right, the choice she could make for America, if she were a patriot, would be to make this case and then at the end say, look, it'd be great, be perfect if she endorsed Joe Biden, but better if she said, I'm not voting for Donald Trump, and I don't think you should too. And, I will vote for a Republican. I'll work for good Republicans down the ballot because I believe in the Republican Party. I'm not a Democrat, right? She could do all that if she wanted to. It would be better if she just endorsed Biden. But she could do this work. This work would be important, I think. And I think her 43% gives her a platform to do that for 4 weeks.
And going into her home state. So here, I was thinking about this in the car on the way down, which is, I was thinking about it a slightly different way, which I was just thinking about. I was composing a tweet in my head that said, if Nikki Haley goes kamikaze on Trump right now and refuses to endorse him, like, I will be like Liz Cheney for her, the way I feel about Liz Cheney. Like, I will love her forever. I will forgive all sins. I would. If she...
No. That was my thinking face about whether I could do that. And I just briefly decided in an instant that I could not, but I'm happy that you could. Go ahead.
If she does what JVL is talking about, she says he's unfit. She says all the things she wants to say, and she makes a hard case and then refuses to endorse him. Yeah, because
and it could matter, right? Do you agree with me?
I do not think I forget what word you used.
Enormous.
To signify a large amount, but I think does it make a marginal impact? Yes, the same way that the reason I wrote that New York Times piece talking about all of the things that the generals and the cabinet members and the people who worked for Trump have said and why they need to speak out now, it does make a difference to marginal voters. We are seeing the green shoots that Tim is talking about is the number of sort of right-leaning independents and soft GOP voters that helped get Joe Biden elected, that are part of the anti-Trump coalition. They are out there now saying even more forcefully they will under no circumstances vote for Donald Trump in 2024, which is as they should. And I think that Donald Trump, it is my fervent hope that he finds himself presiding over what is obviously a much more energized Republican Party, but a much smaller Republican Party. It will become a rump party that is devoted singularly to Trump, that nobody else can sort of inherit that level of enthusiasm, but it will be a smaller party. And that is where the work starts, right? The work starts here today of siphoning off those people, of helping to build the permission structures to move them away from the Republican Party, this MAGA version of the Republican Party. And people like Nikki could be central to that if she were willing to do it. The former optimist who's had it beaten out of me by reality over and over again, suspect that's not what's happening. Although I will say her speech last night was interesting. I mean, I did think it sounded like she wasn't burning her boats, but she was like, I don't know.
But wasn't it the same? This is the thing. I just feel like we're cursed.
Yeah.
And like I'm just living in a time warp where we relive 2016 over and over again. Like, was her speech meaningfully different from the kind of last couple speeches that Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz gave in 2016, or that Scott Walker gave right before he dropped out?
I think it was much softer than anything Rubio and Cruz said.
Right. So,
right. I mean, she has not said anything like Marco Rubio, who called him a con man who was out to destroy America and couldn't be trusted with nuclear codes.
That's true, but the bar for fidelity now, or the bar for loyalty, is much higher than it was back then.
Fair.
Right? Like, everybody back then, you could torch Trump and still get let back on the team. And now, I mean, we haven't talked yet about his absolutely unhinged way he was responding to the fact that Nikki Haley was claiming not victory, but, because she did sort of.
Close to half.
Yeah, she did sort of overperform and yet fail to clear the bar she needed to keep going. Like, both of those things are true. And so it sends just like enough of a weird mixed message. And so he's pissed about it, that he didn't romp the way he romped in Iowa by 30 points. And so he started to, go full insane. If she were to win, she would be investigated immediately. And that kind of stuff.
I want to talk about Crazy Trump, but can I just give on the Haley speech, like the thing, my big takeaway from it is just, I can't help but be frustrated and angry again at another person, another group of people. But the Haley thing, couldn't that have been the speech she was given for 6 months?
Oh, totally.
Like, that's the thing that fucking bugs me so much, right? It's like, I think that my Republican friends, my Republican consultant friends, the handful that still listen to this podcast and talk to me are like, well, if you attack Trump too hard, you become Chris Christie. And I'm like, well, no. There's a medium ground between Chris Christie and what Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis did in this campaign, which was not meaningfully challenge Trump. And Nikki Haley got under his skin last night, and I don't think it would have made a difference. I don't think that she becomes a nominee, but I do think that she could have done just as well as she did, which was, according to the exit polls, get 25% of Republicans, even if that's off by a little bit, even if it's a third of Republicans. I think that she could have still got 33% of Republican votes running an actual campaign against Trump that took him on directly, that trolled him over his dementia, that called him a loser, that actually kind of put him on his back heels a little bit and made him run through the paces. But they didn't do that. They did the same thing as 2016. They did nothing. They're like, oh, anybody that suggested they attack him, like, oh, the base likes him so much, I just have to let him call me bird brain and let him call me a moron while I talk about how great he is. And then in the last gasp, when the campaign's over already, say the truth about him. And like they all did that in 2016. It's the same shit that these other guys did in 2016. Maybe not exactly the same tone, et cetera, but the same trajectory.
DeSantis
like,
just did it.
For us, yeah, I know.
DeSantis, he just did it. He was like, these guys all bend the knee, kiss the ring, whatever. And like 6 days later, he kissed the ring.
I know. So that's
Tim,
the frustrating part.
What do you think
for
she
me.
said last night that got under Trump's skin?
Well, I think that the appearance of like acting like it was a good night, just like, and that he, is not, undefeated, that he's not undefeated. I think that he wanted full submission, right? So I think for starters, there was that. But I do think that the dementia stuff, like talking about him not being on when he's off teleprompter, like she goes up there and does the joke about how she didn't do security on January 6th, and the crowd laughs. Trump doesn't like to be laughed at, like the crowd laughs at him. So I think that stuff got under his skin again, and it wasn't next level podcast level attacks, but it was, she was poking him in a way that she'd been unwilling to before. So I think that's it. And I told this, so I'll give you the abridged version, because I said this last night with Bill, but like, when you win, you want it to be your night. Even St. Mitt Romney got very mad at John Huntsman in New Hampshire after we gave our third place victory speech and had confetti cannons go off. And my friends who were with Mitt in the room was like, that drove Mitt crazy. So if even sober Mitt, can get a little annoyed when other people try to take their shine on a big night, childish, emotional Trump, so I think kind of it was a combination of both those things.
Well, so yeah, okay. Let's close the loop on this though with Nikki Haley. So I have made my pitch that this is a choice that she could make, that this choice would be meaningful, and that it is not like asking a pig to fly. Like it's a real thing that other people have done that she could also do.
Agree.
Give me your odds that she does this. I'll give you mine. 0.0%.
Oh. Okay, so I'm going to give you my blink Malcolm Gladwell answer was 6%. And then as I was sitting here trying to mull myself into, could I get to 11? Could it be a little more than 10%? So somewhere in between 6 and 11% chance for me.
Yeah, so my gut was to say 40% and then immediately go, Sarah, you can't keep doing this to yourself.
And to answer your question, Sarah, what do we think the odds are that she makes it to the South Carolina primary, to the voting in South Kakalaki?
Yeah, I mean, my assumption, so here's the thing. So like I said, no path, no math. The one thing she does have is money. And I guess the question's going to be what does 11 points behind Trump get you? And so today she's going to figure out if a bunch of money guys call her up and say, you got to hang in there. And if they do, right, it's easy for her to talk herself into, well, look, I can campaign for another month. I just think the psychology of, and also she'll probably make phone calls to to South Carolina. A lot of people she knows there. I will say, no big names in South Carolina have endorsed her. They've all endorsed Trump.
The opposite.
Okay?
Ralph Norman.
Oh yeah,
Don't forget about Ralph Norman.
Right.
Insurrectionist Ralph Norman. So she had General Bolduc and Ralph Norman covering her insurrectionist flank.
What are the chances Trump puts a hard press on Norman and gets him to retract?
Very high. I mean, much higher than a
100%.
chance.
Yeah. And so
100%, right? She goes down to South Carolina, and all the people who she came up with and who she presided over as leader of the party in the state are against
all of
her.
them didn't really like her that much anyway, because she was like, because she was a woman, a minority woman who jumped the line to win a primary, so a lot of the old boys club folks don't like her anyway.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that the chances of her dropping out, if the polls don't tighten, but I could see her, instead of dropping out now, I could see her dropping out 3 weeks from now. Because I could, if she's got the money, and it really is a question of what she's hearing today from donors, but if donors are willing to show up for her, and go make the case against Trump, I could see that being intoxicating. But I don't think, if it looks like she's going to get hammered by 30 points, that she ultimately pulls the trigger.
I'll throw out another calculation that's just worth thinking about, because this is all just analyzing Nikki Haley's psychology. We're not doing political analysis here because the campaign's over. And unlike Ron DeSantis, who still harbors delusions that he might be able to run again in 2028, and who still, as the governor of a state, has real responsibility and jobs, this party very obviously is not voting for Nikki Haley. I mean, her coalition last night, as Sarah mentioned, but just to put a finer point on it, was 6% of the electorate was Democrats. She won almost all of them. 40% of the electorate was independents. She won 2/3 of them. And 50% of the electorate was Republicans, and she got slaughtered. Absolutely epically slaughtered. She did John Huntsman, John Kasich levels with Republicans. There was no signs of light there for her. So, given that, she's smart enough to know that this isn't happening for her in 2028, right? So, and given Trump's behavior last night, which we can talk about, VP seems probably off the table. And so, okay, she's got nothing better to do.
Never on the table.
Yeah. She's got nothing better to do. Great point, Sarah. Literally. if she quits the race, we talked about this with the Christie line, and where he's like, you leave the governor's office, you turn the lights off, nobody calls you. I mean, that's her on steroids. Like, she had every camera in the world on her face today. If she quits the race tomorrow, she goes back to Sullivan's Island to her new house with her husband. She's an empty nester now, and she sits there. Like, and she's like, I don't know, making breakfast for herself and watching daytime soaps or what. I don't know. Like, what? I don't know what she does. She has nothing else to do.
In 5 minutes, won't she?
I guess, yeah. She could call around. She has some Zooms with her business friends about what boards.
Cash money.
Sure, but it's not. But there's no juice in it. There's no juice in it. Nobody wants calling her to be CEO of run a company or run a startup. There's nothing that gets her. Nobody wants to interview. Like, she's going to do nothing. Like, she has nothing else to do. And so I do think that that's
sit around being rich for no-show jobs. Who would want to do that? That's crazy. She could start a charity and help feed school children.
I'm not saying that there aren't other things she could do. I'm saying that I don't think there's anything else that she would want to do. I think that her days would feel very empty compared to how they felt the last year.
Yeah, because to run for president, you have to imagine that you can be president. When you imagine that you are president, you are thinking about, like, how will I engage with world leaders and how will I change the course of history as the first one? I mean, like, the levels of grandeur that you have to abandon. How will I
redesign the office on Air Force One? You know,
I am sorry, but getting rich for no work and then being able to do meaningful philanthropy in your community with that money seems like an amazing way to spend your life.
Well,
I have one last psychology question on Nikki, and then we're going to move on to Trump.
Okay.
So, Sarah, you have always made an analogy which really spoke to me, which is that politics is a lot like the high school cafeteria. And like when all of a sudden all the people you used to sit with at lunch shun you and turn their backs to you and you got to go sit by yourself, that's a really powerful thing to people. And it shapes how they engage with the world.
Tribes are powerful. Tribalism is powerful.
That's where Nikki is, right? She has now walked into the cafeteria and all of these people, Tim Scott, Nancy Mace, Donald Trump, who she used to hobnob with and work with, they have like slid their trays over on the table and there is no seat for her in the cafeteria.
You can't sit with us.
I would think that for most people, the reaction to that would be, fuck you all anyway. Like, I don't want any part of you, right? And yet I just don't see that from her. I would bet a watch that she endorses Trump, and I suspect that her campaign against him won't be all that hard over the next 4 weeks. Like, she'll poke a little bit, but she's not going to like make the argument that he's unfit to be president. And
the
what is the
psychology? A little unfit, but yeah.
What is the psychology of that? Because here's the thing, she must realize they're never going to let her back into the lunch table. Right.
So this is what I wonder, though. So when you say she must know, I mean, I don't know. She must know that the Republican Party has lost its mind and doesn't want to elect candidates like her anymore. She doesn't seem to know that. Like, it's not, you can just go look at the exit polls or the, AP vote-cast and see that the people who voted for her are not Republicans, and that's not her base. And so if she could look at that and she could say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what Liz Cheney's doing, and I'm going to sleep great at night, and and she can do that and still be on all the corporate boards. And she gets to have her integrity. She gets to do the thing we know because Nikki Haley has flip-flopped so much back and forth, but she has condemned Trump.
We know what she really thinks because she's
because she's told us. And so she hates Trump. She does think he's unfit. It's fun and good and good for your soul to say the thing that you think. And so that's why I always put it a little higher than you guys, just because to me, it seems self-evident that this club's never going to have you for real. Now, the question is, right? So, and Trump's torching her last night. And to me, that was meaningful. Both how she spoke, which was harder than she has spoken before, which if you're about to drop out and you're looking for how am I going to make, that's not what she was doing. She was sort of saying, you're going to have to fight me for this. Which, by the way, when he does, it's just another piece of analysis here on why this is so hard for her. Like, if she wants to be the one-on-one in the race and have all his fire, like, she hasn't really dealt with that yet. And when Ron DeSantis got it for like a month with old pudding fingers, and that was it. He was done. And
He was
so
broken. He was a broken person. Did you see the
right.
video of him with his kid last night? He put up on X.
I did.
It was like a whole new. It was unbelievable. It was like somebody that has just had the weight of 1,000 anvils dropped off of their shoulder. Like his skin tone was better.
Everything
like
was better.
His little smile was like almost human.
Maybe Ron DeSantis is getting some better help. A quick word from our sponsors. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, right after the new year begins, everyone starts talking about what they want to do differently in the year to come. But instead of obsessing about how you need to reinvent yourself, it can be much healthier to take a second and focus on everything you're doing right. That's why therapy can be so beneficial to your everyday routine, because it helps you find your strengths and expand on them, rather than make you transform yourself into something you're not. Hint, hint, Ron DeSantis. Maybe you finally organized one part of your space and you want to tackle another. Or maybe you're taking your supplements every morning and now you want to actually eat breakfast too. Therapy is a great way to identify all the good you're already doing and help grow those aspects of your life out so you can become the best version of yourself. It's improved my life and the lives of my friends and family around me, helping us all deal with the crazy world we live in. And if you want to give therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's completely online and was created to be convenient and flexible to your schedule. Just answer a brief questionnaire to be matched with a licensed therapist to start improving your mental health, with the ability to switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/thenextlevel today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thenextlevel.
That was great. That's why you do the ad reads, not me.
I got to say,
you're in charge of the reads.
We've never had an ad be more perfectly targeted to the moment in the show than us talking about how suddenly Ron DeSantis looks at peace with himself.
Yeah, Nikki Haley could get herself some of that. Some of that peace of mind.
So Tim, we're going to move
Nikki.
on to Trump in a minute, but you wanted to.
I know. I agree. I do it. I also understand what you're saying about how you would think psychologically that Nikki would just want to go find a new table, and it'd be a nice table. You know, Sarah would be there. George Conway would be there.
Adam Kinzinger, great Adam Kinzinger.
I bet Jen Psaki would have her on her show if she wanted to.
Pierre Delicto.
Yeah, like it'd be a nice table. Our table's fine, but
that guy is a foreign exchange student and he is wild.
Yeah, but I don't know. I can't get inside the brain. But I think it's just it's a natural pull, right? Of just kind of wanting to still have influence within your tribe and not wanting to have to go through a pretty serious identity shift, which we've written plenty about, that requires, looking at yourself a different way. So we'll see. I'd love for her to surprise me. I have many friends who are in Haley world. I consulted for her in 2014. Some of them might listen. Tell her to do it. Water's warm. Just do it. Fuck it. Go full Bulwark.
You're never going to be allowed back out anyway.
This is your moment. Bulwark.
This is the thing, right? All of these people who have had the choice placed in front of them and chose not to take it, like Paul Ryan, who did this, Kevin McCarthy. These guys, you buy yourself what? Another 12 months at the lunch table before they actually fully excommunicate you? This is you're dead with them anyway.
Be part of the solution, not the problem. We're right here.
That's right. All right. So the real problem. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. Donald Trump with his speech last night. And I regret to inform you that at this performance, the role of Christie will be played by Tim Scott, who stood behind Trump with that weird rictus forced smile of his. And wow, that was uncomfortable to watch. I actually couldn't take my eyes off of Tim Scott. I really do wish Trump had gone the whole hog and told him to go get on the plane. There was a moment in this speech where Trump is then, this is full dictator level groveling. And he talks about how much how much you must hate her to have endorsed me instead, Tim. And Tim Scott like freezes for half a second and then says, "No, it's just how much I love you."
Did you watch the video of that where he like runs around to the podium to just shout, "No, it's how much I love you"?
What an astonishing... I mean, this is like something from the death of Stalin.
Did you also see when Trump was making fun of Tim Scott about his engagement? Nobody thinks Tim Scott getting engaged is funnier than Donald Trump. I will tell you this.
Yeah.
Like in Donald Trump's head, this guy's like, this guy is getting married to someone for me. He is shunning the person that appointed him to the Senate for me. I'm making him grovel in front of the audience for me. I mean,
and he looks so happy to do it. He looks so happy to do it.
Hey, Tim, tell them how much you hate Nikki, right? I mean, that's literally what Trump did.
Guys, I will say sometimes you want to laugh at this stuff because it's like the word gobsmacking, right? That fits. Except that it's so dangerous. It's like it is so scary to watch the way that people capitulate with such glee. And they do it like the thing about Tim Scott is that you can see him overdoing it, right? Like it's not comfortable for him exactly. So he's overcompensating in this way that you can visibly identify. And like there's no lengths to which he won't go to help Trump because he wants to be VP so bad. Like, and this is where people, I've been wondering, like, well, what is the next 5 months about? Like, as Trump just gets coronated and whatever. The extent to which there will be a parade of leaks of, they're considering this guy and maybe Marco Rubio and maybe Nancy
Marco last night gets leaked.
Yeah, sure. And I've also heard Ben Carson and, they're floating names around. They're going to do this to the media. Everybody's going to get their little moment, and Trump is going to make them grovel and come to him and just absolutely debase themselves to become his vice president.
Tim Scott, did you not see the gallows? Did you not see the fucking gallows? Okay.
The prize is that you get turned into Mike Pence. Go look at Mike Pence.
They wanted to hang him. They wanted to hang him. They're going to come for you. He's going to come. Why do you want this job? You're also in the Senate for what? Someone's going to primary you? You could just stay a senator for years. You didn't have to do anything. You could have endorsed nobody. You could have just gone home to South Carolina and gone to your favorite restaurants and hung out with your new fiance. Could have taken her on a little pre-honeymoon. You could have gone to the beach. You could do anything. And you're up in freezing-ass New Hampshire like a damn theater kid trying really hard to get the lead in the play, going up there being like, please, Mr. Trump, love me, please. Like, in order to get a job where he would be happy to have you dead if you do not go along with whatever insane, illegal whim comes to his mind when he's the president or when he's the nominee. That's the job you want? Fucking, you're an idiot, Tim Scott. You are an idiot and a dangerous idiot.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if these guys have really thought it through. Because, on the one hand, if you are Trump's VP pick and Trump wins, you're then placed in a position in which at some point he's going to ask you to do illegal things and you have to defy him or risk the gallows, right? But if Trump loses, you are then immediately placed in the position where you have to run around, no matter what the results were, testifying to the fact that Trump did in fact win.
Right.
And if you say that Trump lost, then you are unpersoned for forever. Yes. Like, what is the prize here? What is the crown that they think they get for being Trump's VP? I don't understand that.
The painting on the wall of the White House, I guess. The little entry in the history books when you're on the Wikipedia page of losing vice presidential candidates, it's like Tim Scott is down there, next to Paul Ryan and Tim Kaine. I don't know. That is what they want. But the post-election thing is so important because it's not like it's not like in a different situation. Mike Pence, I think, could have talked himself into in 2016 that he would be the heir apparent. It's like, if I'm just a good boy, if I just go along with this and just kind of go along with the crazy, he's going to lose. Eventually he'll either win or lose, and then I'll be the next one up. I'll be the good soldier. But we learned from Mike Pence that that's not on the table for you, right? They're not going to be interested in you as the next in line.
David Frum had this tweet that I have been thinking about since he did it, which was that Henry VIII kept killing his wives. Like, women kept lining up to be the next wife of the king, despite the fact that he kept beheading them. And I was like, that's true. Like, I guess there's something in human psychology. It's like, well, it won't happen to me. With me, it'll be different, and I'll get to be queen.
3 years of being the queen is better than a lifetime as being the peasant, I guess.
I guess. Maybe. I don't know. All I know is Tim Scott was particularly gross to watch, but I also saw Cornyn, serious guy Cornyn, come out and endorse. We need to coalesce around Donald Trump.
Cornyn was flirting with conviction. Cornyn was on the kind of stretch list. He gave a couple of quotes that were like, he was noodling conviction.
Yeah. I bet he regrets not voting for conviction now. But here's the thing. I want to just say this. Donald Trump is a terrible, awful person. Unworthy of any office in the United States. But I will say, I believe anybody who endorses Donald Trump at this point is also unworthy of office in the United States. I don't care if it's Chris Sununu.
Forever.
It's forever. Like, it is an unforgivable thing to do. And for people who think this is a TDS, never Republican, we're off the edge. No. He tried not to leave. We all saw it. And all you anti-antis at the time said, get rid of this guy. And then you all endorsed Ron DeSantis, and you all talked about how Trump was totally unacceptable. We are not wrong here. And every Republican who endorses him, Marco Rubio, I don't care how normal they are in other circumstances. They are unfit and unworthy for office, and they should all be voted out.
Hear, hear.
I mean, if you can't stand up to Donald Trump because you're afraid that he's going to try to get you primaried, how could you possibly handle the duties of commander-in-chief?
Yeah.
And deal with questions, for instance, of the Russian invasion of Ukraine and deciding whether or not you can risk sending aid versus whether or not Putin would escalate, right? I mean, these are problems that Biden dealt with early in the war, right? When Putin was people forget, in the first weeks of the war, Putin was threatening to go nuclear. And so there was a whole debate over, Biden doesn't want to give him wants to give aid, but he doesn't want to give Putin the provocation. I mean, people don't remember this because it was a million years ago, but this happened, and Biden faced the dude down. Would you trust any of these people who can't even say that they simply won't not endorse, who just won't say one way or another whether they're going to vote for Donald Trump?
I would not trust these people to coach my child's soccer team. They're just unable to make basic moral calculations, obviously. So forget choices of war.
Let's talk about Joe Biden and Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips got his ticket to ride.
He did.
He finished with 19.6% of the vote, despite being the only name on the ballot.
I was going to say, Joe Biden wasn't on the ballot.
Excuse me, Marianne Williamson was on the ballot.
There you go.
She got 5% or maybe 4.4.
So really, she was his Jill Stein. If Marianne Williamson had not been on that ballot, he could have been at 25% of the vote. That's what you're telling me, Tim.
Yeah, for sure. He could have got a full quarter of the vote. I have a bone to pick with Dean Phillips. Who, for starters, randomly is running a way more aggro campaign against Joe Biden than anybody did against Donald Trump, except for Chris Christie.
Thank you for noticing
Which makes no sense. I do think, I literally think that had Dean Phillips, I don't think he would have won, but I think had he gotten in the race and had he done what Newt Gingrich did in 2012, which was just crush Obama every day and be like, wouldn't you love to see me on a stage with Obama? I don't think Dean Phillips is capable of this, but had somebody gotten in and crushed Trump every day and trolled him and went on MSNBC and just made fun of his makeup and made fun of his hands, and I think that Joe Biden might have had a problem on his hands, because I think that some people in the Democratic Party might have started to look at this and be like, maybe we need somebody that can satisfy that itch that we need of punching this guy in the face a little harder. He didn't do that. He decided to get in and like complain about the DNC and sound like Glenn Greenwald. And that was not. It's not a path to winning the current Democratic primary. But I have one other specific complaint about Dean. I don't know did you see this? He had an event that nobody came to, and then across the street was a Trump event where there were a lot of people. And so he like took the press with him and went over to the line of Trump people and like hung out and talked to them and asked them what their opinion was on things. And then he did a little gaggle after, and he said, I just spent 40 minutes in line with these Trump voters, and they have just real concerns. And I don't know, the media and the Democrats and the elites all act like they're insane, crazy people. And like, I didn't see any crazy people. I saw people that had legitimate concerns that, da-da-da-da-da. And I was
about
just
women being president because they might be on their periods.
I was like, no. I was like, you're the condescending one, you gelato fuck. Like, nobody thinks that these people have like horns coming out of their heads, and that if you just greet them in line and say, hello, hey, nice to meet you, I'm Dean Phillips, they're going to start dropping N-bombs or something. Like they're still humans. They're still human beings. Like, yeah, as we learned, a lot of Donald Trump voters have some pretty gross views about certain things. Like, and if you spend a lot of time with them and explore them, there are some things that like you will hear that will make you uncomfortable, as Sarah knows more than anybody. The fact that they want Donald Trump to be president by itself is a pretty gross view. But like, they're still humans, and so I just hate this notion that it's like, oh well, just in the bubble, Joe Biden doesn't understand that these people are real humans. Like Joe Biden gets it. Joe Biden treats them like humans. Like, who are you talking about? It's like just such a straw man. It's like, maybe Joy Reid said something about them that I don't like. It's like, Joy Reid, you're not running against the craziest, most condescending liberal on Twitter, right? You're running against Joe Biden. So that just got under my skin.
Well, I'm looking forward to Dean Phillips starting to write for Barry Weiss once he gets
that is his trajectory here. That is
right.
where he
this
sort
is,
of ends
I mean, he's
up.
2 steps away from becoming like vax curious.
Yeah, well, Andrew Yang was on with Jesse Waters this week, and he told Jesse that it was that Jesse Waters' World was his favorite show on Fox besides Gutfeld. So I think that's a trajectory that Dean Phillips seems to be headed on.
Why wouldn't he? Like, I guess this is my question, right? We see the whole world is going crazy, and why is it that all of the crazy, I mean, it's not all the crazy, like some of the crazy spins out into like pro-Hamas lefties. But it seems like if there's crazy in the world, that the gravitational pull pulls them over towards MAGA. Why is that?
I don't entirely agree. But
you don't agree?
Well, you just sort of dismissed, like, I think the Hamas crazies are like a real thing and a real problem.
I do too. I do too. But like Andrew Yang isn't heading in that direction, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but I don't think Andrew Yang is crazy. I think that there is a big chunk on the right that allows people to kind of do the a pox on both their houses. Like, you can find sort of a warm reception, and that's why Barry Weiss can say, look, I'm never going to vote for Donald Trump, but like, let me just talk about the excesses of the left, and I will find an audience on the right, because that's where people land who feel like they're not for Trump, but they are against the left. And I think that there is not just a pretty good market for that overall. I think there's a really good news consumption audience for that, like a high info audience that likes that conversation. And so that there's a world there for Yang that he doesn't have in the Democratic Party. Right?
This is so smart, right? So there are still, back to the point, just circling back on 2 points from this thing. Trump won 108 out of 110 counties so far. Some of those counties have college-educated voters in them. And the college-educated, but they don't really like him. Like, he still has some of those voters. They have to consume news somewhere. They're not consuming the war room. You know, like they can't consume where we go one, where we go all shit, right? And so they need to look for something, and this is a news place for it. I think that is one example. I think Sarah's right about it, and I think Sarah's also right. It's the cafeteria again. It's frustrating. They don't know Tim Scott.
I mean, I make this point a lot with the focus group stuff, is that like, most people are like pretty normal. They talk about how they volunteer for their kids' school and take care of their sick parents and like, a lot of them, it's tribal. A lot of them, like I'm not. Well, I was on. What was I doing? I was doing NPR, and I was on with the great Heather Cox Richardson. But she was kind of doing what I hear a lot of folks do, where like there's a white nationalist takeover of the Republican Party, and it's always like a tough one because it's not untrue that there's a real white nationalism strain within the Republican Party, but it is not the dominant strain, right? Like the dominant strain is still made up of normal but angry people, and of course, what they talk about, they want to talk about is the economy and healthcare, and those are the things that like matter to them. If you talk about issues or you say like what matters to you, then
you ask them about the border, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you want what? You want barbed wire and sharks? Like, where'd that come from?
Some, but not everybody. Like but what they want is for someone to take the border seriously. I mean, I think there's plenty of non-insane, legitimate concerns that people can have. I think where I have always deviated is on the solution being Donald Trump, because if you're willing to say that to get the things I want, I'm willing to engage in all kinds of illiberal behavior, then you are not a conservative. You don't believe in the Constitution, and you don't believe in American liberal democracy.
I agree with that. I would just caveat. I agree with that. I just caveat that these things exist within the same people. Humans are complicated, right?
Sure.
Like a human that has legitimate concerns about the economy or the border or whatever. Most of them that are voting for Donald Trump also think that Joe Biden is an illegitimate president. Like they've also, like, on certain topics, their brains have been poisoned by the MAGA news media. And so if like you go up and have a question with them and ask them like, oh, how's your kid's school? How was your last trip to the grocery store? Like the responses are normal. But then if you go up to them and like, what do you think about the voting machines? Then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, where are you getting your news from?
I'm just trying to visualize the pie chart in my head, and I feel as though that segment of the pie that was like just pure Trump cultism, which was about 35% or 30% in 2016, it feels to me like it's a lot bigger than 40% now. And that, like, the revealed preferences, we had a very good field of candidates, right? We had all of the things represented, right? All of the choices for different flavors of conservatism. We had serious people of stature, people who are good politicians. And the revealed preference is that these people just wanted Trump.
Did you think that we had good candidates? I'm not sure I agree with that. I didn't think there was any. I thought you can't beat something with nothing, and we got nothing.
I think that other than DeSantis, I mean, Mike Pence is a former vice president. Former vice presidents are very formidable. They almost always win the nomination. Nikki Haley is a good candidate. Tim Scott on paper is a good candidate. Christie, good candidate.
I mean,
right? We had an evangelical
so
candidate.
I don't. Yeah, sure. But like, there were plenty of options. I don't know. Were any of those candidates worse? I hear what you're saying, Sarah. Like comparing them against fake candidates. But like, were any of those candidates worse than Mitt Romney, who won the nomination in 2012 pretty handily? I don't think so. Mitt has a lot of strengths and weaknesses, but Mitt was not like a great performer, really, or a perfect ideological fit for the party. He was a pretty formidable debater. He got pretty good at that by 2012, much better than he was in 2008. But I don't even look at Ron DeSantis. And Ron DeSantis' campaign was horrible, and his opponent. There's a lot of different contexts, but just as far as candidate skills are concerned, it's not like Ron DeSantis was miles worse than Mitt. Mike Pence was about the same as Mitt. Tim Scott was a little worse. Nikki Haley a little better. Chris Christie way better.
And you know what? This is a fair point in that I think that the rhythms and the expectations in politics have changed dramatically. And so part of it is, and this is maybe, I don't know that I think that it's that there's like everybody's in the cult, sort of the way JVL is saying. I do think people have decided they want charismatic personalities and like not nearly as much policy talk. They want to fight, right? They want to fight.
Not
I hear it all the
Democrats.
time. Wow.
Right? Democrats have a policy guy.
I don't know, man. The Democrat, they ask for a fighter all the time too in the focus groups. The Democrats do.
Sure, sure. And there's some differences between the parties, but again, Joe Biden won a nomination, not a particularly strong candidate. Hillary Clinton won a nomination, not a particularly strong candidate. Like, It's only recently that like we've come to this thing that like, oh, you have to be an amazing performer
No,
to be
I
the
just
nominee.
think
And George
I think
Bush wasn't that good.
Republican
John
voters
Kerry
want.
wasn't that good. Yeah.
But Donald Trump, this is my point, is that he changed the expectation. So what I'm saying is like, it's less that I just think they're a cult. It's that they've come to crave like the circus, the fun, the accessibility. And I always try to mention this because I think I hear it a lot. Like Trump made politics accessible and interesting to people who otherwise didn't feel like politics was accessible to them because they didn't like boring policy speeches. And they like when Trump, beats up on his opponents and makes fun of like trans athletes.
Guys, we'll only do this long mega shows following meaningless primaries. So, don't worry. You've got at most one of them left. Head over to the Bulwark and sign up for all the free stuff we give you. Go listen to our podcast. Check out the YouTube stuff. We'll see you next week.